on other issues as well, is that Trump always wants to be seen to side with the winner, the side in a conflict that appears to be stronger. A year ago, he was telling Zelensky that he had no cards. Zelensky and Ukraine have dramatically disproved that. It seems that Trump, in some sense, understands the
area, which is often online these days, and we're going to defend that right as it pertains to American companies and American citizens vigorously.
Going to happen, I wouldn't make a deal.
Some people may wonder why.
You know, they ought to focus on CNN on survival, not asking me these ridiculous questions. Focus on surviving, because CNN's got such low ratings. I don't think they're going to survive. Let's go. Please go.
I already mentioned Poland. Poland was under Russian control for decades after the Second World War. When I was a kid, I looked at the United States not only as a most powerful country, richest country in the world, the country that has great music, great movies, great muscle cars, but also as a force for good. And now I'm talking with my friends in Poland, and they are worried that you align yourself too much with Putin. What's your message for them?
Well, if I didn't align myself with both of them, you'd never have a deal. You want me to say really terrible things about Putin and then say, "Hi, Vladimir, how are we doing on the deal?" That doesn't work that way. I'm not aligned with Putin. I'm not aligned with anybody. I'm aligned with the United States of America and for the good of the world. I'm aligned with the world, and I want to get this thing over with. You see the hatred he's got for Putin. It's very tough for me to make a deal with that kind of hate. He's got tremendous hatred, and I understand that, but I can tell you the other side isn't exactly in love with, him either. So it's not a question of alignment. I'm aligned with the world. I want to get the thing set. I'm aligned with Europe. I want to see if we can get this thing done. You want me to be tough? I could be tougher than any human being you've ever seen. I'd be so tough. But you're never going to get a deal that way. So that's the way it goes. All right, one more question.
Hey, I want to respond to this. So look, for 4 years in the United States of America, we had a president who stood up at press conferences and talked tough about Vladimir Putin, and then Putin invaded Ukraine and destroyed a significant chunk of the country. The path to peace and the path to prosperity is maybe engaging in diplomacy. We tried the pathway of Joe Biden of thumping our chest and pretending that the President of the United States' words mattered more than the President of the United States' actions. What makes America a good country is America engaging in diplomacy. That's what President Trump is doing.
Can I ask you?
Sure.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So he occupied our parts, big parts of Ukraine, part of East and Crimea. So he occupied it on 2014. So during a lot of years, so I'm not speaking about just Biden, but those time was Obama, then President Obama, then President Trump, then President Biden, now President Trump, and God bless, now President Trump will stop him. But during 2014, nobody stopped him. He just occupied and took. He killed people. You know what the contact line?
2015.
2014.
2014 and 2014.
2014.
Yeah. So
I was not here.
Yeah, but
that's exactly right.
Yes, but during 2014 till 2022, the situation the same. The people have been dying on the contact line. Nobody stopped him. You know that we had conversations with him, a lot of conversation, my bilateral conversation, and we signed with him, me, like a new president. In 2019, I signed with him the deal. I signed with him, Macron and Merkel, we signed ceasefire. Ceasefire. All of them told me that he will never go. We signed him with gas contract. Gas contract. Yes, but after that, he broken this ceasefire. He killed our people and he didn't exchange prisoners. We signed the exchange of prisoners, but he didn't do it. What kind of diplomacy, JD, you are speaking about? What do you mean?
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media. Right now, you guys are going around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems. You should be thanking the president for trying to bring an end to this conflict.
Have you ever been to Ukraine? That you say what problems we have?
I have been to.
Come once.
I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President. Do you disagree that you've had problems bringing people into your military? And do you think that it's respectful to come to the Oval Office of the United States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent the destruction of your country?
A lot of questions. Let's start from the beginning.
Sure.
First of all, during the war.
If you got hit, even if you were not driving, you need to try this.
Because
during the war, everybody has problems. Even you, but you have nice ocean and don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless.
You don't
God
know
bless.
that.
You will not have a war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that.
That's
Remember
exactly what
this.
you're doing.
You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel. We're going to feel very good.
You will feel influence.
We're going to feel very good and very strong.
You will feel influence.
You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed yourself to be in a very bad position, and he happens to be right about it.
From the very beginning of the war.
You're not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having
not
cards.
Playing cards.
Right now, you don't.
You're
playing cards. You're playing cards.
Serious.
You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country. That's back to you. Far more than a lot of people said they should have.
Have you said thank you once?
This entire meeting?
No, in this entire meeting, have you said thank you?
Today.
You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition in October. Offer some words of appreciation for the United States of America and the president who's trying to save your country.
Please, you think that if you will speak very loudly about the war, you can...
He's not speaking loudly. He's not speaking loudly. Your country is in big trouble.
Can I
Wait a
answer?
minute. No. You've done a lot of talking. Your country is in big trouble.
I know.
You're not winning. You're not winning this. You have a damn good chance of coming out okay because of us.
Mr. President, we are staying in our country, staying strong from the very beginning of the war. We've been alone, and we are thankful. I said thanks
you haven't
in
been
this
alone.
cabinet,
You haven't been alone.
in this cabinet.
We gave you, through this stupid president, $350 billion.
You voted
we gave
for
you
your
military equipment, and your men are brave, but they had to use our military. If you didn't have our military equipment, this war would have been over in 2 weeks.
In 3 days, I heard it from Putin. In 3 days, this is something
maybe
new.
less.
In 2 weeks, of course, yes.
It's going to be a very hard thing to do business like this.
Again,
I tell you.
just say thank you.
I said a lot of times to American people.
Accept that there are disagreements, and let's go litigate those disagreements rather than trying to fight it out in the American media when you're wrong. We know.
Very much for coming. We're going to sign the agreement at the conference in the East Room in a little while, right after lunch. And we'll be having lunch together. We're also discussing some other things. And we appreciate everybody being here. It's somewhat of an exciting moment, but the really exciting moment is when they stop the shooting and we end up with a deal. And I think we're fairly close to getting that, and an honor to have you. And please, I'd like to say something.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. President. Thank you for invitation. And really, I hope that this first document, will be first step to real security guarantees for Ukraine, our people, our children. I really count on it. And of course, we count that America will not stop support. Really, for us, it's very important to support and to continue it. I want to discuss it with details further during our conversation, and of course, the infrastructure or security guarantees. because for today, I understand what Europe is ready to do.
Looking for real-world.
Do you disagree that you've had problems bringing people into your military? And do you think that it's respectful to come to the Oval Office of the United States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent the destruction of your country?
A lot of questions. Let's start from the beginning.
Sure.
First of all, during the war, everybody has problems. Even you, but you have nice ocean and don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless.
You don't
God
know
bless.
that.
You will not have a war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. $150 billion.
You voted
we gave
for
you
your
military
president.
equipment,
You
and your
voted
men
for
are
your
brave,
president.
but they had to use our military.
What about West
If
people?
you didn't have
You
our
invited
military
me-
equipment,
you invited
if
me
you
to
didn't
speak.
have our military equipment, this war would have been over in 2 weeks.
In 3 days, I heard it from Putin. In 3 days, this is something
Maybe
new.
less.
In 2 weeks, of course, yes.
It's going to be a very hard thing to do business like this. I
Again,
tell you.
just say thank you.
I said a lot of times to American people.
Accept that there are disagreements, and let's go litigate those disagreements rather than trying to fight it out in the American media when you're wrong. We know that you're wrong.
But you see, I think it's good for the American people to see what's going on.
I understand, sir.
I think it's
I
very
understand.
important. That's why I kept this going so long. You have to be thankful. You don't have the
I'm
cards.
thankful.
You're buried there. Your people are dying.
tell you
You're
again,
running
I
low
know.
on soldiers.
Don't-
Listen,
don't please,
you're running
Mr.
low on
President.
soldiers. It would be a damn good thing.
Mr.
And then
President.
then you tell us, I don't want a ceasefire. I don't want a ceasefire. I want to go and I want this. Look, if you could get a ceasefire right now, I tell you, you take it so the bullets stop flying and your men stop getting killed.
Of course, we want to stop the war.
But you're
I
saying
said-
you don't want a ceasefire.
But I said to you,
I want a ceasefire.
with guarantees.
Because you'll get a ceasefire faster than an agreement.
Ask our people about ceasefire, what they think.
That wasn't
doesn't
with
matter
me.
for you what-
That
what
wasn't
this
with me.
means. It
That was
wasn't
with
with you.
a guy named Biden, who was not a smart person.
This
That
is
was
your,
with,
this
that
is
was with
your
Obama.
president. It was your president.
Excuse me. That was with Obama, who gave you sheets, and I gave you javelins.
Yes.
I gave you the javelins to take out all those tanks. Obama gave you sheets. In fact, the statement is Obama gave sheets and Trump gave javelins. You got to be more thankful, because let me tell you, you don't have the cards. With us, you have the cards. But without us, you don't have any cards.
One more question to Mr. Vice President. I'm sorry.
It's going to be a tough deal to make,
Um,
because the attitudes have to change.
what if Russia breaks ceasefire? What if Russia breaks peace talks? What do we do then? I understand that it's a heated conversation right now.
What are you
but
saying?
what if
She's asking, what if Russia
Putin
breaks the ceasefire?
What if anything? What if a bomb drops on your head right now?
But they have
Okay?
broken the
What if they
ceasefire.
broke it? I don't know. They broke it with Biden because Biden, they didn't respect him. They didn't respect Obama. They respect me.
But what
Let me tell you, Putin went through a hell of a lot with me. He went through a phony witch hunt where they used him and Russia. Russia. You ever hear of that deal? That was a phony Hunter Biden, Joe Biden scam. Hillary Clinton, Shifty Adam Schiff. It was a Democrat scam. And he had to go through that. And he did go through it. We didn't end up in a war. And he went through it. He was accused of all that stuff. He had nothing to do with it. It came out of Hunter Biden's bathroom. It came out of Hunter Biden's bedroom. It was disgusting. And then they said, oh, the laptop from hell was made by Russia. The 51 agents. The whole thing was a scam. And he had to put up with that. He was being accused of all that stuff. All I can say is this. He might have broken deals with Obama and Bush, and he might have broken them with Biden. He did, maybe. Maybe he didn't. I don't know what happened. But he didn't break them with me. He wants to make a deal. I don't know if you can make a deal. The problem is I've empowered you to be a tough guy. And I don't think you'd be a tough guy without the United States. And your people are very brave. But you're either going to make a deal or we're out. And if we're out, you'll fight it out. I don't think it's going to be pretty, but you'll fight it out. But you don't have the cards. But once we sign that deal, you're in a much better position. But you're not acting at all thankful. And that's not a nice thing. I'll be honest, that's not a nice thing.
Ukraine, drones, Russian bombers bombed. To put all that in context, I'm glad to welcome to our Conversation Corner Benjamin Jensen, who joins me as a senior fellow at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. Benjamin, Tell my audience what happened and why this thing is so stunning in its scope and approach.
So I've studied war for over 20 years, and I thought about this the exact same way you introduced it. This is groundbreaking, and I want to break down quickly why. Please. Number one, what we see is over a year of deep intelligence and special forces infiltration. So while Ukraine might not have the size of the Russian army, they have a phenomenal special forces. And they were able to position assets outside of at least 4 that we know of so far, major Russian air bases. And get this, hide drones in trucks carrying wooden sheds. So for all Russia knew, there's some drunk Russian guy driving his old truck around the base. Oh, Igor, there he goes again. And all of a sudden, the roof flies off and first-person view drones, and you see that footage, are targeting some of the most valuable military assets in the Russian arsenal, long-range strategic bombers. Initial reports suggest at least 40 damaged or destroyed. So that's $7 billion of equipment taken off the battlefield in one day. That reflects a year of brilliant military planning. It actually reminds me most of famous SAS raids the UK did in North Africa. So when you saw the pictures of folks driving jeeps, shooting machine guns at Nazi planes, this is just as groundbreaking as that operation was in the 1940s, and is a sign of really what's happening now in future war.
Benjamin, I've read some quick analysis that uses the phrase the new face of warfare. Is it?
Yes, but it's always old and new. There's always a Janus element to war. There are things.
Unleashed what appears to be its largest drone strike in months on Moscow, killing 3 people, according to Russian officials. The attack comes as Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky claims Russia is looking for new soldiers. Stephanie Bennett reports from our London bureau. Stephanie.
Hey, John. Yeah, Russian defenses shot down 81 drones heading towards Moscow overnight. That's according to the city's mayor. Now, 3 people were killed near Moscow, and a 4th died in the Belgorod region. Russia's defense ministry said by midday, more than 1,000 Ukrainian drones had been downed in the past 24 hours. President Zelensky confirmed the overnight attacks, and he wrote on X that, quote, "Our responses to Russia's prolongation of the war and its attacks on our cities and communities are entirely justified," adding that Ukraine was able to strike targets more than 300 miles from the border. Tonight, he also said, quote, "This is a clear signal that one should not pick a fight with Ukraine." Of course, it comes after a heavy week of attacks by Russia, who launched more than 3,100 drones and 1,300 guided aerial bombs and 74 missiles against Ukraine.
And they're spending like crazy on their defense. I mean, they're putting in these berms, they're putting in landmines. I mean, and if you're a Pole, you have long memories, right? Unlike Americans, we've never been occupied, invaded, right, in our entire history. And except for the South, after the World War, we have no idea what any of this means.
I want to personalize this a little bit for folks, because I think one of the more interesting things about your research is that you've found that when history unfolds like this, it's driven by these recurring generational archetypes. So each generation, of course, yes, is really influenced by the part of the cycle, the historical cycle they grew up in. So for instance, I'm a Gen Xer, I'm a late Gen Xer. How did the events of my upbringing influence the role that I'll play when the next crisis happens?
Well, Gen Xers, they were, throwaway kids, right? No one really cared about you.
And we're tougher for it.
And you're tougher for it. So you say
how many Gen Xers do we have out there? Okay, thank you. How many baby boomers do we have out there? Okay.
Oh, come on.
Neil's a baby boomer. What about millennials? We've got a good cohort of millennials. Do we have any Gen Z out there? All right, good. Okay, so Gen X, we're throwaways. What about the baby boomers?
So let's talk about Gen X a little bit.
Let's talk about Gen X.
Give them some attention.
because God knows they've never had much attention. Here's another thing that's interesting about Gen X, by the way. When we coined the millennial generation, that was in 1991. That was a year before Doug Coupland's book came out called Gen X. So here's the ultimate problem. If all you Gen Xers out there don't feel abused enough already, just consider this. The generation after you is named before you were. I mean, yeah, enough said. You don't have to say anything else.
But what will we do in the reset? Because we have a specific role we'll play.
Well, you know, you talk about Gen Xers and what defined them, you know, everything from survivor shows, reality shows, all this stuff. And you look at, we now have a cabinet of Gen Xers, right? Yep. I mean, Trump's cabinet. And they're all tweeting each other like, you know, Europe is pathetic, you know. And it's all in capital letters, you know. This is Gen X now running our country. And we should have seen it coming because we already knew what they were like in the 1990s. Now they're just aged into power. And they're all into, you know, they're all into telling it brutally like it is. You look at Pete Hegseth, you know, it's all about lethality. Let's call it the Department of War. Well, tell it like it is. You know what I mean? Don't sugarcoat it.
What about the role that the millennials will play?
Well, millennials, it's their role to bring back community. And I think on the other side of the crisis, that will be their responsibility. In fact, coming together as a community will be what they need to do to get us through this. You saw the same generational lineup, by the way, in the Great Depression and World War II. Who was the midlife generation, the hard knocks generation that sort of led the troops in World War II? The George Pattons, the Omar Bradleys, they were all part of the lost generation, which was also a throwaway generation, right? It was back when kids were run over by streetcars. No one really cared. We had a huge wave of child protective legislation that came in right around 1910. And we had this huge wave of construction of schools in America, particularly high schools. That was all for the new GI generation. They were just too...
Why are these Gen Xers are so free agent-like? You know, they just don't commit themselves to the group. It goes back to childhood experience. That's the way Xers were raised. And when Xers came out into the economy and into college in the 1980s, we started to hear a lot of disappointment. I mean, these childhood double movies to, you know, disappointment in the 80s about the product of our educational systems, how little they read, how little they voted, how little they were interested in civic affairs, how greedy they were, all of this stuff. It's kind of a negative reputation around Generation X. It kind of evolved from that in young adulthood. I often point out to boomers, who are usually the first to condemn Generation X, that they have huge positive attributes of this generation which have gone neglected. I sometimes tell boomers when they entered the workforce, what did productivity do, right? What has it done with Xers? It's gone back up again. Xers really, more than anything else, represent a generation of extreme individual creativity and resilience. Xers really, more than anything else, represent a generation of extreme individual creativity and resilience. Xers really, more than anything else, represent a generation of extreme individual creativity and resilience. After 9/11, everyone was talking about the resilience of America. Which generation do you think really showed that resilience? I don't think boomers. I think it's the who moved my cheese generation. I think it's Generation X. I mean, who was most likely in those Twin Towers at that hour of the morning? Who was in that flight from Pittsburgh? Who was in that wing of the Pentagon? Who was shipping out a couple of weeks later to Afghanistan, you know, getting married, signing their wills? This is Generation X. It can take anything you give it.
Talk to you about this Ukraine drone story, just because, I mean, I feel like you're one of my friends who understands how my brain works on this sort of thing. I think your brain works in sort of the same ways. Like, it is an incredible war story about Ukraine's capability and their resilience and their creativity and the way it is an incredible war story about Ukraine's capability and their resilience and their creativity and the way they have just done this, you know, like David versus Goliath. They've accomplished things that nobody thought they could, but it also does have international strategic implications for every country in the world that's kind of in Russia's position in terms of thinking about its own defenses, thinking about its own nuclear deterrence. I wonder.
More video footage has been released in social media showing the aftermath of the Ukrainian mass drone attack on the Moscow oil refinery. The videos have been shared by local residents who have expressed their shock over the attacks. This is harsh. There is fire. It will take a long time to extinguish the fire. They hit it hard, one man said as he was filming the site of the attack. Another video also captures the extent of the destruction in the area where dark fumes of smoke is covering the sky. Overnight on June 17th, Ukraine launched one of the largest drone attacks on Moscow since the start of Russia's full-fledged invasion in February 2022. Thursday's attack marked the second strike on Moscow oil refinery in Kapotnya, one of the capital region's key fuel facilities, in past 3 days.
Бля, это жестко, пиздец. Ебать. Ебать, там огниво, ебать, охуеть просто. Это просто охуеть, бля.
24 settled over Donetsk and Luhansk. Russia flooded the sky with more than 85 fighter jets, bombers, and attack helicopters, convinced Ukraine was nearly out of air defense missiles. For 11 days, Russian pilots repeated the same 4 flight corridors, the same hours, same speeds, same routes. A perfect pattern lock. U.S. satellites saw it instantly. Ukraine didn't challenge Russia head-on. It built a 6-week deception network the Pentagon later called one of the most sophisticated air traps of the war. 42 fake radars mimicked Patriot, NASAMS, and Iris-T batteries. 60 thermal drones created phantom Ukrainian squadrons. Electronic warfare teams built a fake, safe corridor. AI models calculated the exact moment when 70–80% of Russia's air fleet would cluster in a 9-kilometer bubble. At 1940, Russia flew straight in. Ukraine unleashed Black Hornet EW, blinding Russian radar for 25 seconds, long enough to decide the fate of an entire regiment. Pilots lost wingmen, chased illusions, and collided with fake heat signatures. 18 missiles erupted from hidden launch sites. 40 suicide drones spiraled upward, herding Russian aircraft downward into kill zones. In 7 minutes, more than 40 Russian aircraft vanished, the largest sudden air loss in modern Russian history. By dawn, Ukraine had disappeared. Spiderweb wasn't a battle. It was the night Russia lost the sky. As winter 2024 settled over Donetsk and Luhansk,
we sat down with President Zelensky on the eve of this invasion. Are you at all surprised how he has led this country thus far? I mean, this guy, he's 44 years old. He went to law school. He was an actor and a comedian who played a president on television. He has rallied this nation in an extraordinary way. Did it surprise you at all?
You know, I when I talk about President Zelensky, I think it should be said that I'm talking about most of what I observed in Ukrainian people. You know, we have these inspirational figures in our micro lives. You know, I have extraordinary children that inspire me, an extraordinary estranged wife who inspires me daily. And then there's the macro inspiration of these great figures of history. Meeting with President Zelensky the day before the invasion, and then meeting with him again on the day of the invasion. I don't know if he knew that he was born for this, but it was clear I was in the presence of something, and again, I think reflected of so many Ukrainians, that was new to the modern world in terms of courage and dignity and love that comes out of the man, and the way he has unified that country. And I think Mr. Putin certainly added to paving the way to that. But this is such an extraordinary moment, and I was endlessly impressed and moved by him and terrified for him and for Ukraine.
I have never been in a country at war in which the people are so united, so determined, and again, I mean, that word has become a cliche here, the determination, but the resolve here, elderly women, elderly men, children, everybody, the resolve to not only fight now, but fight for however long and whatever happens.
Yeah, there's no question in my mind that this is not going to end soon no matter what, because you will have a country of extraordinary insurgencies if Putin is successful in this. There's no sign that Mr. Putin is looking for an off-ramp. And one of the greatest feeling that I have, you know, I'm not a war correspondent, but I have traveled in conflict zones and done some reporting. And I remember being in Tripoli and Benghazi during the NATO attacks and the freedom fighters fighting, as well as against the Gaddafi forces. And it was sketchy, but this was ominous. It was ominous because it was so heartbreaking in the ripple effects it's going to have around the world, where this incredible symbol of democracy, a belief in free dreaming, is being assaulted. And they're fighting for their lives, and they're going to continue to fight for their lives. And I start to feel that we as Americans are plummeting off a cliff, atop which is our flag that represents all of our dreams and the best of our history. And that we're plummeting where it's going to go out of sight. I don't know the answers. I don't know if no-fly zones will create a nuclear war. I do know that we have to invest everything that we have to support the Ukrainian people and to support President Zelensky, or I do not think we will have a legitimate memory of what America hoped to be.